What's up, my friends and family, my followers, my people, my tribe? Hope everybody's doing incredibly well. Today is the third week of January 2025. The concept I want to share with everybody today is a principle around delegation. If you are somebody who considers themselves a control freak, knows that delegation is important in terms of having more time in your day, or in terms of scaling your business, or even just wanting to do a little bit less in a proper way, delegation is absolutely critical. This is not a new concept. By no means am I making up this theory. It's not the first time you're probably hearing about this, especially if you're coming across this channel. But I want to share with you a theory that you haven't heard anywhere else. This is a concept in terms of a blueprint on how to decide or to determine when and where you should delegate, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in your business, or whether it's in everything and in between. So a coach that I'm working with right now, Dan Martell, he is, for anybody that doesn't know, the author of Buy Back Your Time. He's also an investor in multiple businesses. He's got several coaching platforms, so on and so forth. He is proving to be a master of delegation. So part of the way in which that he has been successful and is growing and is expanding his world, his life, the quality of his world and his life is through delegation. Now, one of the things that we have to just make sure is an assumption. It's an obvious piece before I actually get into this blueprint, if you will, on how to actually delegate, is that when you do delegate, there are things that are obvious that have to be accompany that delegation. You have to have playbooks. You have to have scripts. You have to have checklists. If you're going to provide a task or a job to somebody that isn't yourself, you're going to have to give them the tools to be able to run that task, that job effectively and efficiently. So how do you decide when and where to delegate? Rule number one, we've heard this before. If somebody can do something as well as you, 80% or better, then that is in the threshold of allowing yourself to take that task, take that responsibility, take that idea, that work, whatever it is, and provide it or delegate to someone else. Something else that I've heard based on that, if 30 people can do something 80% as well as you can, that is 100% better than you having to do all those 30 things. Okay, so 80% is really that threshold. Again, that number is not a new concept. I'm borrowing it from people like DM, from people like Gladwell, authors that have talked about all this stuff. Now, if you're somebody like me, where you feel the need to understand that work a little bit before you delegate, whether it's because you want to understand the responsibilities that accompany it. Maybe you want to be able to support and train your team, that person, when they have questions, right? If you know nothing about that role, nothing about that task, nothing about that job, when a hiccup comes up or when a problem arises, unless you're a very, very experienced and good coach and don't necessarily need to understand the role and the strategy, and your coaching skills are at an 8, 9, or 10, then you probably need to understand what that role is and what that job is, etc., and what that task is to be able to give some solutions, some guidance, some direction, okay? And so the threshold that I believe is incredibly important, because I am that person. Before I have a superintendent looking over my buildings, I needed to do some of those responsibilities, that task. I needed to understand where this time goes in the run of a day. I needed to understand what types of interruption does that role see on a regular basis. I wanted to understand all that stuff because I wanted to be able to coach my people when problems come up. I also wanted to be able to manage those people, give praise when praise is due. If they're doing an exceptional job, I want to know what an exceptional job looks like because I have experience in that role. Likewise, if someone's doing an ineffective job or aren't meeting standards, I can hold those people accountable a lot better as well, in my opinion, if I understand that role. So for me, the threshold I now use is I feel I need to understand the task, the role, at least 50% as good as that person that's going to be doing it. Let me reword that. I need to understand the role, 50% of what the role entails. So some examples might include, if I want to be a world-class musician, before I delegate some of those responsibilities, I don't necessarily have to be the next Beethoven, okay? But I should probably understand how to read music a little bit. Maybe I can play an instrument 2, maybe 3, right? And that would be a simple example for what I'm talking about, which might confuse people. But 50% of that job or that role is that threshold. Now, 51% to 79% in my experience and in my opinion is that third tier. If you know the role 50% or greater, but it's not quite at that 80%, this is where I recommend you use your discretion. And how do you use your discretion? If it is a task that either you really, really enjoy doing, then there's a good chance that maybe you keep it. 51%, 55%, 60%, if it's not quite 80% and you enjoy it, keep doing that task. It's something that probably fills your bucket, probably makes you feel really good, probably gives you a lot of energy. If it's also something that has a high ROI, so the return on your invested time and energy, it's a big rock, then that is also something that you would want to keep as a task or responsibility for yourself. If it's between kind of 51 and 79 and you don't know what you should do, should get rid of it, you kind of want to, if it's a role or job or a task that you don't like, get rid of it. Delegate it, find someone who's going to do it. If it's a job or a task that isn't earning you money or energy or time back in your pocket, then you can use your discretion to get rid of it again. And so for me, the three tiers in terms of trying to figure out when to delegate and what to delegate is, if you don't know it, 0 to 50% of what that job entails or that task entails, keep it, understand it, massage it, learn it, engulf it, use it, be a part of that. Once you get to 50 to 79%, use your discretion. Do I like it? Does it pay me well? Is there an ROI? Anything that's 80% or higher, if someone can do the task or responsibility 80% as well, you can or better, get rid of that delegation, send it off, give it to somebody else to do it because your time is worth way more than that. Guys, my Petey G, love.